So we're here at the Airport Operators Association annual conference, and I'm joined here by Mark Swan, who is head of Airspace Change Organising Group. Mark, thank you so much for joining me. My first question for you is, what is ACOG? Could you give us a brief overview in a nutshell?
Yeah, sure. So what is ACOG? So we were set up 3 years ago now, due to the government's airspace modernisation strategy really kicking off and moving forward at pace. And the organisation was set up under myself to draw together the commercial sector of airspace modernisation, so 22 airports, all committing originally their own money into a national programme of airspace modernisation change, facilitated and coordinated by myself and my colleagues to drive that modernisation programme over the next 5 years to fruition.
Fantastic. What is actually wrong with the airspace and why does it need changing and modernising?
Yeah, great question. So I guess the important thing to say is nothing is wrong with the airspace system in terms of safety. It is a very safe system and will continue to be so. However, the overall system, if you can think of these invisible motorways and dual carriageways in the sky, they haven't really changed since the 1950s, would you believe?
Wow.
Yeah, that's a big wow. And the efficiencies of improving capacity, cost efficiency, resilience, reduced passenger delays, they're all up for grabs under a modernisation programme. And the broad theme is to move from ground-based radio beacons from back in the 50s to basically sat-nav. So if you imagine your car without a sat-nav, however many years ago that was, and then think of aviation moving to global sat-nav to enable closer, quicker, quieter journeys, that's the sort of broad basis on which we are progressing the programme.
That feels like a huge, massive project. Is it possible to actually achieve this modernisation?
So I would say yes it is, but I would say that would not.
Yeah.
The key thing, the 22 airports, so from Heathrow all the way down to some of the regional airports, are absolutely committed to this programme. And the modernisation strategy started back in 2011 when I was a director in the Civil Aviation Authority, where we set out the 10-year strategy for modernisation, and the airports have been collaborating on that since then. So first point is it's not new. The second point is the drivers for growth, the drivers for capacity, the drivers for modernisation really all kicked off at a pace back in 2018 when passenger delays became about 30 minutes per flight in the worst areas across the whole of Europe. If we do nothing, passenger delays are due to increase to 28 million minutes of delay by 2030. So that in itself is a driver for modernisation, let alone the decarbonisation agenda, which is also driving modernisation in a great way for the broader public communities.
Absolutely. And why would an airport choose to sign up and work with you? Is it literally just their sustainability objectives and maybe their noise objectives as well, or are there other drivers?
I think there are other drivers. So, as I said, the airport community have been involved in this programme for many, many years. These are commercially competitive, privately funded enterprises, and all of them, bar none, have neighbours in close proximity who equally have commercially competitive drivers. So part of our job is to make sure that there is an equitable balance of the airspace between those airports, and so they have to work together. So a good example is in the London area. You have 8 airports, Heathrow being the big beast in the jungle, if you like. 8 airports all trying to share the airspace, all wanting to go broadly in the same direction, so off to the continent for your holidays or off out to America for international travel, and the airspace is only finite. So by working together, we can achieve a balance such that there is equitable sharing of the airspace, and of course the safety and the regulatory oversight all has to be taken into account as well. So collaboration is an absolute must.
And I assume you're trying to eventually get every single UK airport on board?
Those that need to change are on board. So some of the other airports, Birmingham's a good example, have already been through that process several years ago. They've modernised, they're up to date with what they want to do, and their airports have not conflicted with others. So there was no need to share the airspace. So several have already passed through this gateway. There may well be others to come. So Farnborough Airport, for example, has just joined. It's the 22nd airport. And no doubt others will join as their growth and capacity ambitions become realised over the next decade.
Great. Now, what was the group's biggest achievement since COVID, would you say?
Yeah, so COVID was tough. We saw, as everybody knows, on the airport side, total decline and fall off in both investment, in capital capability, and basically the finances of all the airports fell through the floor. Massive debt burden now, as we've heard today, 60 billion of debt across the regions. Our most notable achievement was actually to keep this program going. So we'd only set it up 4 months beforehand. Fortunately, we were able to make a case, remobilising Airspace Change, which is a report we produced during COVID, and that report leveraged a bid to the government to award a grant of taxpayers' money, £9.2 million, up till this coming April, to keep the programme alive, and every airport in the programme has had a share of that money to go through the original part of the CA's process, of which, broadly speaking, they're probably about a quarter of the way through. In the next couple of years, we'll see that come to fruition.
Now it's a new year, fresh challenges, so I'm just interested to know what is on your personal to-do list for 2023?
Yeah, so the personal to-do list for ACOG, for the organisation, a big ticket item this year is to explain to the public, so nationally across the UK, what is this all about? What does it mean? What does it mean for you? And we'll be holding a public engagement exercise across the country in late spring, early summer to do just that. In parallel, I'm doing a series of regional engagement roundtables through the Chambers of Commerce to help explain to the business communities what growth, efficiency, capacity, jobs, what all that means for the local and regional economies as well. So we're kind of tackling this both from the business and commercial growth side, but as well as informing the general public, what does aviation modernisation mean for you? How can you be a part of that conversation? And most importantly, how are your views heard and then reacted on as the airspace changes roll through the process?
And what kind of changes can passengers expect to see then? Is there anything noticeable that you can talk about?
Yeah, one of the big areas we'll be looking at is where, as I said earlier, a lot of aeroplanes want to go to the same departure points because they want to get to the continent and everything else. What we'll be showing local communities is what are the noise effects? What are the carbon efficiencies that could be achieved? How might that trade-off work? What does it look like for you and your communities? So there'll be a lot of interest in that. In the broader perspective, what is the economy and the growth looking like? So for today, we'll be publishing a macroeconomic study on the value to the UK economy of airports and aviations and around. So that will help inform the national story as we look at modernisation.
That's fantastic. I think you definitely need to bring everyone on the journey with you and get buy-in from all parties. My final question for you is, what does aviation need to do to secure its place in the future, in your opinion?
Yeah, so how do we secure our place in the future? I think the big ticket item on the front of everybody's agenda right now is the decarbonisation agenda. So how do we truly make aviation fit for the future by being greener, by being quieter and cleaner, all the good things we talk about, but it's not done what it says so far. I think the key point for me is we hear a lot about sustainable aviation fuels, about future hydrogen carbon batteries and all that sort of thing. What we're focusing on inside my organisation is, in the near term, how can airspace modernisation actually contribute to that net zero 2050 target? And we firmly believe that by modernising the structures that sit above us, we can take out about 20% real, so not carbon offsets, 20% real of carbon efficiency, cleaner flights, more direct routes, 20% of fuel savings that will contribute towards that 2050 target. So that's our major goal.
Fantastic. Mark, that was my final question. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure talking to you.